Okay, welcome back. It is time to add some more features to our shoot 'em up. First thing we have to do though is a minor update from what we did in the last video. Remember when I first added bullet collisions and realized that the bullets could destroy enemies that are off the screen? Well, we kind of have a similar problem with our enemies that are shooting at us. Let's say I take this enemy here and I move him back here. All of a sudden I play, and well, his bullets are seemingly coming from nowhere. And that doesn't make sense. I mean, I guess it's not always a bad thing, like when they foreshadowed Koopa in the original Super Mario Brothers castles. But these ships, we want to make sure that they're only shooting when they're within view. So we'll just set that up really quick. And the way that we're going to set that up is to just go ahead and leverage what the destructible script is already doing. So here we're already flagging that we can be destroyed once our ship enters this threshold on the screen. So let's set this up so it can only be called once. Not can be destroyed. So as soon as that becomes true, this will never become true again. And I thought about creating a separate script to do all this, but I'm going to go ahead and assume that destructibles, or I guess there will be no indestructible objects in the game that shoot. So we can assume that if something has a gun, then it's going to be destructible. So we can go ahead and put that logic inside the script. And we can do that very similar to the way that the ship found all of its guns. Right, this transform get components and children, and we're going to go ahead and get all the guns. This is going to be a gun array, guns. And then for every gun, each gun, and guns, we're going to go ahead and say that the gun is now active, which we can do by creating an is active, and set that equal to true. And then we're going to go ahead and create that on the gun, and basically don't update anything if not active. So let's create that is active, and then if not is active, just return. And then we'll just make sure to activate them on the ship when we first get them. So let's see, which gun, gun that is active, true. And they're just automatically active for the player ship. So let's see if our experiment worked. Basically shouldn't start shooting until the ship's entered the view. All right, it's not shooting. Let's see if it does. And there it goes. Nice. So now we can actually get started on what we really wanted to do for this video, which is adding a couple of new features to this game. The first of which being that the game can have multiple levels, and then we'll seamlessly transition between the two. And then once we're done with that, we'll just add a score so that as we're destroying enemies, we're racking up a score. And that'll also persist between the levels. And we're going to set it up in such a way so that when it changes from one level to the next, it's actually a very smooth transition and not very jarring where everything disappears and it looks like your player resets or something like that. So basically as if your ship is just continuing to fly from one level to the next. So I'm going to go ahead and just rename this sample scene to level 1. Level 1. Load it. All right, then I'm going to go duplicate that and name it level 2. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is just group all the common things that are shared between the levels, which is going to end up being a level controller. I'm just going to name it level. And I'm going to go ahead and dump the ship in there because the player ship is basically going to be in every level. And I'm just going to make a prefab out of this. And then any future components that we add that are going to be shared between levels, we can just dump inside this level prefab, and it's just going to exist in every level as we go. So let's go to level 2, save level 1. We can delete the ship here, and then we'll just add back this level. Okay, so how am I going to handle actually changing levels? What's the actual condition for having the game transition from level 1 to level 2? What I've decided to do is basically say if there's no more enemies on the screen, then just go ahead and wait a few seconds, and then we'll go ahead and launch the next level. So we'll at least need a way to track how many enemies are still left in the scene, and we can, and that'll probably be the first component of something that will call our level controller. And I'll just go to level, new script, and attach it to that level prefab that we have. Go ahead and launch that. So we want to know how many enemies are still in the level. So that's going to be some integer num enemies. And then we'll go ahead and make some methods here. Public void add enemy. And all that's going to do is increment the enemy count. And then we're going to go ahead and make a slightly more complex remove enemy. And that's going to decrease the enemy count. And basically every time that we remove an enemy, we can go ahead and say, once we've reached no more enemies, then we can safely go ahead and launch the next scene. But I want to do that basically timed so that it's not as soon as you destroy an enemy, the scene just switches. I want to make it so that once the last enemy is destroyed, the game will give you a little bit of buffer time, let's say 3 seconds, and then it'll transition to the next level. So we can go ahead and say something like, we'll start next level. And then once the enemies are 0, just start next level. And then in our update, once we're allowed to do that, we'll go ahead and create a next level timer. We'll set it equal to however long we want to wait. And then if next level timer has elapsed, once it's 0, otherwise just go ahead and decrement that next level timer. Right, so it'll just continue shrinking until it reaches 0, and then we'll go ahead and launch the next scene. So we'll have to know which scenes are which levels. We can go ahead and do that here with just creating a string array of all of our scene names, and we'll put them in order of what level they actually are. So our first level scene name is level 1, and then it's level 2. And that's all we have so far. And then we'll keep track of which level we're actually on. Something like that. So as soon as that level timer is up, we're going to go ahead and switch levels. We're going to start by saying that our current level should just increment. And then as long as we have a level available for this value, we're going to go ahead and try to load it. So if current level is less than or equal to the number of levels, which is basically the size of our levels string array. So the current size, it has 2 elements. So this length would be 2. If we increment to some value that ends up being 3, then basically the game is over, right? So if we happen to be greater than the number of levels that we have, we're just going to go ahead and for now debug.log game over. Done. Okay, and now we're going to go ahead and grab the scene name that we want. Levels and arrays are 0 index, so we're going to current level -1, right? Because that's the index that we want in the array. And then we're just going to go ahead and do scene manager. I need scene management. That's Unity engine.scene management. Scene manager load scene, and we're going to do load scene async, and that's because we want the scene to be loading in the background while our game is still playing, and once it's ready it'll actually load, and that'll make the transition between the scenes a bit smoother. Probably unnoticeable, the difference between load scene and load scene async, because our scene is so small. There's not a lot of stuff going on inside, but just in case, we'll try to future-proof it a little bit. And load scene async has this async operation that it returns, that we can basically check whether the loading is done, but we don't really care. We just want it to load in the background. Scene name, and that'll load the next scene. And then regardless of what happens, we'll go ahead and say level timer resets, next level timer, and then do not start the next level. Otherwise, the next level will start immediately after we launch the next level. And I guess it's probably more appropriate to say that we're not tracking the number of enemies. We're actually tracking the number of total destructibles. I guess it could be something like a meteor is still in the scene that's passing by or something like that. So We'll just call it num destructibles instead. Do that. Okay, there, and then rename this destructible, right, and add destructible. And then we'll want to call these methods from our destructible. And basically, since we have our little level manager here, and we know there's only ever going to be one of them in the game, we'll go ahead and make it easy to access by just creating a static instance here. So we'll create this static level instance, right? And then we'll just set that, go ahead and do that in awake. So that's available as soon as possible. And instance just equals this. We'll do a little bit more with this later, but this is good enough for now. And that way this level manager and all of its methods, its public methods, are easily available for anyone to access. So we'll go ahead and go to our destructible now. And as soon as we get created, we'll go ahead and say level.instance. Okay, instance. All right, fine. Instance. Maybe it's not public. It's not. Okay. Right? Instance, and then we'll say add destructible, and that's it. And then once we're actually destroyed, so we do destroy ourselves here, and it kind of seems like we never set it up, but our destructible should be destroying itself once it actually gets out of the view of the screen. So I thought we set that up. Let me just double check. Maybe I completely forgot. Oh, never mind. That's in the move. It is in the move script, right? So the move right, left destroys us. Okay, fine. So we at least know that we're getting destroyed as long as we're moving. So that's fine. So we're getting destroyed in multiple ways. So what we can do just to ensure that no matter how we're destroyed, we're letting the level know about it. The Unity mono behavior has this onDestroy handler here, which basically will get called whenever this destroy is called from anywhere on this object. So we'll just go ahead and say level instance remove. So now that we have all that set up, let's go ahead and see if it actually loads the next scene based on when all of our destructibles basically get removed, and that timer counts down from 3 after that happens. All right, let's see that. I'm gonna try and avoid everything right now just to see if it'll load. All right, they're destroying themselves, and I guess in about 3 seconds it should load the next level. There it is. All right, and then remember we set it up so that once our level count gets high enough, it'll actually just console log that that it's game over. So you can see that that actually didn't happen, and there's a good reason for that, right? That's actually because every level scene has a separate instance of this level object, and so once a new level launches, it's going to go ahead and reinstantiate the brand new level object, and it's going to have all of its original values, which says that the current level is currently 1, and it's just going to continuously attempt to load level 2, and basically everything else gets reset as well. And I said earlier that I want, well, not only that we'll have to keep track of this variable, but we'll also want very smooth transitions between the levels, right? You'll see again, if I just play here, let me just try to kill everything and see if the level loads that way as well. Roughly 3 seconds, 1, 2, 3, and you'll see that there, everything reset, all my bullets disappeared, my ship reset to its original position, and that's not exactly what we want, right? We want that to be really smooth. So how are we gonna do that? We're basically gonna want it so that our levels don't instantiate a brand new level object every scene, at least to start with. And since our ship is inside of our level object, anything that we apply to this level object to keep it from reinstantiating, it's also going to apply to our ship, so that's going to be nice and handy, and our ship won't actually reset to its original position. So the way that we're going to do that is Unity has this handy function called DontDestroyOnLoad, where you can specify objects that should not get destroyed when a new scene loads, and they'll just persist in between scenes. So that'll be where we're going to start. So we'll go to level, we'll go to awake, and what we're going to do is just simply DontDestroyOnLoad, and that'll be this game object that we're attached to. All right, so let's go ahead and see what happens then. Try to do this, kill all these guys, and then the level will load. All right, and now we have another interesting problem, right? Maybe this isn't a problem, this is actually pretty cool, but multiple ships, and and that's just gonna keep getting crazier and crazier, right? I actually want to... All right, and the reason that this is happening now is because, well, our initial level object is not destroying on load, and each level has its own level object, so then as we progress through all the levels, our original level object will carry forward with us, and we'll keep having more and more level objects as we go. So what we want to do is make sure that the level object itself knows which actual object it is, and for any other level objects, it's going to go ahead and just destroy those because we don't need them anymore, because we already have our primary level object that we're going to be working with. So before we go ahead and set this instance, we're just going to make sure only do this if it doesn't exist already, and then we're going to set this to don't destroy. Otherwise, we know that some instance has already been set, right? Because awake is being called, and awake only gets called once on this thing, because when you set don't destroy on load and the next scene loads, it's not going to call awake again. So if awake is being called, it's going to be on future instances of this level object. So then we can go ahead and just say destroy myself, and that'll allow that original level object to carry over. I'll destroy myself, so there'll only ever be one level object. And this is sort of a simple way to create something that's called a singleton, which is just a very common programming design pattern that allows you to make sure that if you're trying to access an instance of an object and you want there to be only one instance ever of that thing, that no matter how you're trying to access it, you're always going to get the exact same instance that originally was instantiated the first time, and no future instances will ever get created. And this is just a very simple way to do that in Unity with game objects. So let's see if that fixed our sort of infinite player ship bug. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and attempt to just get past this level, see how that goes. And loaded, and there's no extra player ship, and we still have our level object, and we'll go ahead and see if that works. And we didn't transition to a new level because there's only one level object and it knows the real level count, so game over. Nice. Now we're not completely done with that, right? I wanted it to be like a completely smooth transition between levels, and you'll notice that something is still slightly off, which is if I shoot just a bunch of bullets here, you'll see that, hey, all those bullets disappeared. And that's kind of jarring and doesn't look very smooth, and it's not very nice. So, and there's a simple thing we can do for that. We don't have to do anything very special. Exactly what we did for the level object, we can just go ahead and do for the bullets, right? So I'm just gonna go to the bullet script and just very simply, this is gonna destroy itself in 3 seconds anyway, so we don't care that it's transitioning to the next level that much. So just go ahead and don't destroy on load this game object, and then it'll just kill itself, right? The only way bullets are getting instantiated is from our ship's gun, and they're destroying themselves in 3 seconds. So this is more than enough. So now let's see that our levels actually, that our bullets actually persist, right? And I think it's pretty obvious that they will as the scene loads, and there it was. None of the bullets that we had in between scenes actually were destroyed. Perfect. Now what we actually need is a score, because we want to destroy things and keep track of our running score. And this part's actually going to be really easy. Let's go back to level 1 here, or we'll just go to our level prefab. No, let's go to level. And then we'll go ahead and just create a UI object, right? So this is going to be a UI text, right? And that's just going to display our score. And you'll see that our canvas here is nice and gigantic. That's just the way Unity handles canvases, and there's our text, and it's nice and ugly. So what we're going to do is go ahead and do just add a new scene tab, and we'll just say that this one is going to be specifically for viewing our game, and this one's going to be for viewing our gigantic UI. And Unity kind of takes care of mapping this gigantic canvas to our screen space here. As you can see, there's just new text in the lower left corner. Let's just check the canvas settings. And one thing you're going to want to do where it says constant pixel size, you'll see that creates a problem whenever you try to change the size of the screen. You'll see that that text suddenly goes off the screen. So we'll just go ahead and map it and say that scale with the screen size, right? And then it actually disappeared. So we're going to actually set it to some reference resolution. So we'll just say that it's something with a 16:9, and it's something probably pretty big. So 1920 by 1080 is my monitor resolution. And there's the text actually. It's actually very, very tiny now. So we're going to go ahead and just make that bigger. Make that about 40 point. Nice bright color that'll appear on our background. That'll be white. And then we'll move that up here to the top. Right. This is going to be our score. And then we'll add another one that'll actually hold the value. Duplicate that, and this will actually be our score text. Move that over here. That'll start off with 0. And you'll see that when we created these text objects that Unity went ahead and created the canvas for us and went ahead and created this event system for us. And since all this stuff is going to be shared between the scenes, we want our score display to update naturally as we transition. So we just want to just dump that all right into the level, right? And then we'll go to level and we'll update that, override that prefab, apply all. And now all that stuff is going to be in the level and load in between levels, and that'll be just fine. And let's make sure that we put this text and this score text back inside of the canvas where it belongs. And we'll have to do that from within the prefab. Do that like that. And now it's displaying again. And then we'll just fix this weird positioning here. Let's move this guy over here. And you can go here. All right, with those little annoyances out of the way, let's get back to what we were doing. Let's go back to our level. And now that we have this score text object that we constantly want to update with some value, and it seems that our level prefab never actually had the level script attached. It was just inside the object from level 2. So we'll go ahead and just apply all that stuff. All right, so now that's across all the levels. Jump over here to level. And then as soon as we're created, we'll go ahead and also grab what is this score text object, right? So we'll need access to Unity UI. And we'll just go ahead and say that, well, we'll need a score. Set that to 0. And we'll have a score text. And then once we're created, score text equals game object find score text dot get component, and we'll grab the text component out of it. And then we'll simply create another public method here that just says add score and some score amount. That score amount or amount to add, and then score plus equals amount to add, and we'll go ahead and update our text. Score text dot text equals our current score, and we'll turn that into a string. And then we'll go over to our destructible, and every time we destroy one of these things, we're basically going to add to our current score, right? So this thing is going to need some concept of a score, right? So some score value that it has, default it to something like 10, 100 maybe. And then every time one of our bullets destroys it, level instance add score, our score value. All right, then we can head back here and then we can set up specifically what we want scores to be, right? I can go to my enemy type 1. Where's destructible? His score is going to be 100. That's fine. I'll go to enemy type 2. This one shoots bullets. It's worth more points. Why not? It's worth 300 points. There we go. All right, and then we'll go ahead and see if destroying these things will actually increment our score as we go. There it is, 300 for that one. And a little 100 points for each one of those. That's about 1,100 points. And then that score will persist when the level loads. Ah, okay. So level 2 can't be loaded because it's not been added to the build settings, asset bundle, yada, yada, yada. Okay, so earlier we were testing within level 2 and it was loading level 2 after that. So now that we're testing from level 1, it's trying to load level 2 and it can't find it. Right, so that's simply because Unity looks for all the scenes that are in the build settings when you're loading scenes, if it's not the current scene that you're in. So we'll just go over to build settings, right? And the only way to add a new scene to the build settings is, well, you have to be in the scene first. I wish there was a simpler way to do this, but yeah, go to build settings, add open scenes. So our current open scene is level 2, and now we have level 2 here. in scenes in the build. And now when we do what we wanted to do before, destroy everybody, and roughly 3 seconds, there's level 2. And that enemy kind of appeared very jarringly out of nowhere. So, and that's probably just because of how the scenes are set up, right? This guy's just right here in the beginning. So let's go to our zoomed in view here. This is level 1. So we'll go ahead and take this enemy type. We'll move him somewhere nicer, far away. I'm just going to go ahead and do a lot of little level design things, and then I'm just going to fast forward through the whole thing, and then we'll get to that point. Okay, time lapse over. Let's see how I did. I created a couple more enemy types, 1 extra level, and I removed my uber power ability to have all kinds of bullets. All right, so these guys will come in, they'll start shooting. I'll just leave that one. And then you'll see this interesting shoot. I probably could have killed him already. It's not that challenging. I just created some new interesting shoot pattern there. So, and then we'll move on to level 2, which I got a little lazy. It's actually an exact copy of level 1. So again, just trying to rack up as many points as possible. Why not? All right, and then for level 3, since we didn't really have any sort of game over or you win created yet, there we go. We basically just did what Doom did at the end of the game, which is once you reach the end, you basically are screwed and there's nothing you can do. So I set up a new enemy type that just fires bullets as often as possible, basically every frame, by setting the interval to 0, and you end up with this madness here. So that's the game so far. Not necessarily over. In the next video, I want to do something where we can actually add more guns to our player ship as we collect power-ups, right? That's kind of an essential part of any shoot 'em up. And then thinking that maybe after that, we'll add something like special effects for sound effects and explosion animations, something like that. So we'll actually get into the animation of Unity just a little bit. In either case, as usual, I really hope you enjoyed this. I hope you learned something. It was kind of a bit of all over the place, a little bit of a mess. This one was also a long one. I know that, so thanks for sticking through with that. If you made it this far, that means you really liked it. So give the video a like, go ahead and do that. And if you happen to watch the video this far and you haven't subscribed yet, you probably want to do that as well so you can catch the next video, which I just mentioned. So thank you again and take care.